Everyone thought they knew Yandy Smith, the polished businesswoman, the proud mother, the loyal wife who stood by Mendeecees Harris when he sat behind prison bars, to millions. She was a rare figure in love and hip-hop who carried dignity while everyone else collapsed in scandal. Fans crowned her the symbol of loyalty. They believed her tears, her speeches, her sacrifices. She wasn't just a cast member, she was a queen who seemed untouchable. But what if that image was never real? What if it was nothing more than smoke and mirrors carefully staged for the cameras? What if the same family who once called her sister, the same blood who once welcomed her with open arms, is now tearing the mask from her face? This isn't gossip, this isn't shade, this is betrayal at its highest level. And betrayal that comes from inside the family doesn't just bruise, it cuts the deepest. For the first time, the spotlight isn't showing Yandy Smith's shine, it's showing her shadows, and those shadows are being dragged out not by her enemies, not by jealous outsiders, but by Mendeecees Harris' own relatives. It started quietly, as scandals always do. Rumors bubbling in Atlanta streets, cryptic captions tossed into Instagram lives, laughs dropped in conversations that didn't match the mood, shade so slick that only insiders could decode it. For months, whispers swirled that Yandy's past wasn't as clean as she made it look. Some whispered about shady business deals she hoped would never resurface. Others swore she erased entire chapters of her life, rewriting her history so clean that no one could question her. Fans caught the hints, but no one wanted to believe them. After all, wasn't Yandy Smith supposed to be the one who stood for loyalty? Then came the shift. The moment whispers turned into shouts. Members of Mendeecees' family finally broke their silence. They didn't hold back, they didn't hesitate, they stepped into the spotlight. And they aimed directly at the woman millions once adored. At first, it came like smoke signals, an aunt throwing shade on a live stream, a cousin hinting during a podcast that Yandy wasn't who she pretends to be. Small comments, but powerful enough to make fans pause. Suddenly, the woman who built her empire on loyalty started to look questionable. Could it be true? Could the same woman who stood at prison gates crying for her man be hiding secrets behind those tears? And when Mendeecees Harris himself refused to speak, refused to deny, refused to defend, that silence exploded like dynamite. Because in this game, silence isn't neutral, silence is gasoline poured on fire. Everyone knew it. Silence meant danger, silence meant the family's words were closer to truth than fiction. The first crack was money, according to whispers. Yandy's financial struggles before love and hip-hop weren't just the usual grind of a hungry manager. They were deeper, darker, tied to debts and aspirations she never wanted dragged back into daylight. Insiders claim she leaned on connections that blurred the line between hustle and survival, rewriting the story later as hard work and sacrifice. But the family wasn't having it. One relative cut her image with a single brutal line. She acts like she built everything herself, but she forgets who gave her a roof when she didn't have one. A simple sentence, but it shook the fanbase like thunder. The message was clear. Yandy Smith's rise wasn't all self-made, and the very people who once lifted her up were now demanding credit. Or maybe demanding revenge. The second crack wasn't about money, it was about love. Or rather, strategy disguised as love. Long before Mendeecees Harris, the family says Yandy Smith was tied to a man whose connections opened doors she couldn't touch on her own. According to them, that relationship wasn't just romance, it was calculated. And when she had no more use for him, she buried every trace. She rewrote the chapter as her own grind, her own sacrifice. The same Yandy who scolded other women on camera for chasing clout was now accused of doing the very thing she condemned. Fans were stunned, critics were quick to clap back. This is who she's always been, we just didn't want to see it. And the betrayal cut even deeper because of the source. These weren't strangers. These weren't castmates with grudges, these were family. People who once defended Yandy Smith as their own. People who once sat at her table, called her sister, called her daughter-in-law. For them to turn now, for them to drag her secrets into the light? That wasn't just betrayal, it was demolition. Yet for the audience, it didn't feel like demolition. It felt like confirmation, because deep down, fans had always sensed there was more to Yandy Smith than the perfect image she projected. Now, the cracks were finally showing. Old reunion clips resurfaced where castmates gave her side eyes. Montages of suspicious glances spread across TikTok. Fans declared VH1 had been hinting at this betrayal all along. But the family didn't stop. At Money and Men, they went deeper. They accused Yandy Smith of betraying early business partners, of breaking trust with friends who quietly disappeared from her life, of using people until they had nothing left to give. None of it proven in court, but in reality TV, proof doesn't matter as much as perception, and perception was killing her brand. One viral tweet captured the mood with sharp precision. It's always the one screaming loyalty, who hide the dirtiest secrets. Through it all, Yandy Smith tried to stay quiet. But for a woman who built her brand on controlling the narrative, silence was suicide. Fans asked, was she afraid to confirm something? Was she waiting to spin it? Every day she stayed quiet. Her silence became the noose tightening around her image, and still, the blogs feasted. Headlines screamed family betrayal. Podcasts debated whether the relatives were telling hard truths or chasing clout. But timing is everything, and with Yandy already under fire for her shocking confession about an emotional affair, her family's betrayal landed like a bomb. What could have been sympathy turned into disaster. For once, Yandy Smith wasn't running the story. Her family-in-law was. The storm didn't calm, it grew louder. The whispers had already cut through the polished image of Yandy Smith. But the family wasn't finished. Once the first cracks showed, they realized the power they held. And once betrayal starts, there's no turning back. The internet was already on fire. Clips going viral, memes multiplying, fan pages digging through old interviews and pulling receipts. What began as whispers about Yandy's past was now a flood of accusations so detailed, so personal, that even her most loyal supporters started questioning if they had ever truly known her at all. And then came the escalation, not a shady post, not a throwaway comment. This time, it was a calculated move, a sit-down interview. A relative of Mendeecees Harris sat before the camera, eye steady, voice calm as if testifying. Their first words dropped like ice across the fandom. You want to know who Yandy Smith really is? Let's talk about the things she never wanted filmed. The first bombshell cut deep to the world. Yandy Smith was a savvy entrepreneur who flipped reality TV fame into a thriving brand, but the family claimed that brand wasn't clean. They accused her of cutting deals in the shadows, of using personal relationships as leverage, of stepping on anyone who stood in her way. They accused her of leaving more than one partner in financial ruin. The words stung because they clashed so violently with the image fans adored: Yandy the mentor, Yandy the giver, Yandy the loyal one. If the family was telling the truth, then loyalty wasn't her legacy, it was her mask. And then came the revelation that rattled even harder: the erased relationship. Long before Mendeecees Harris, they said, Yandy Smith was tied to a man whose network opened doors she couldn't touch alone. To the family, it wasn't romance, it was strategy. And when that chapter ended, she buried it so deep fans would never find it. Suddenly, the woman who once condemned other women for chasing clout was accused of doing the very same thing and doing it better than anyone. Social media erupted, old blurry photos reappeared, screenshots surfaced, fans claimed they had spotted Yandy Smith at events she swore she never attended. TikTok stitched together her old speeches against the family's accusations, stamped with one word: audacity. The hashtag #YandyY exposed dominated timelines. One viral comment said it all: she's been playing saint while moving like a hustler. Another cut sharper: the family wouldn't risk this unless they knew. This isn't betrayal, it's exposure. And through it all, Mendeecees Harris stayed silent. His silence carried weight, but it also carried consequences. Every day he refused to speak, speculation grew louder. Was he shielding his wife, quietly agreeing with his family, or trapped between two sides where no matter what he chose, he would lose? Blogs ran with screaming headlines: Mendeecees chooses silence, but for how long? Talk shows debated whether a man could defend his wife if the attack came from his own blood. Fans flooded his comments: say something, defend her, or admit it's true, true, But the family wasn't done. They went live again, voices calm, words deliberate. This time, a cousin dropped a chilling line: Yandy Smith knows how to play the long game. But the thing about long games, eventually, someone keeps score. It wasn't delivered like shade, it was delivered like testimony. And in a world where perception is stronger than evidence, that composure made every word sound like gospel. By now, the narrative had flipped. Yandy Smith was no longer being celebrated as a loyal wife who stood by her man. She was being recast as a woman who rewrote her past, erased inconvenient truths, and rebuilt her image every time it cracked. Fans began to rewind her entire history on love and hip-hop, every dodged question, every moment she refused to clarify her marriage status. Every excuse suddenly looked like a clue people missed the first time. Then came the threat that froze the internet. In another interview, the family declared, we've got proof, and if Yandy Smith keeps pretending, we'll show it. That single word proof set the internet on fire. Proof is a nuclear option. Proof turns whispers into headlines. Proof doesn't just hurt, it destroys. Fans held their breath. Did the family really have receipts? Screenshots, recordings, documents? If they did, Yandy's carefully built empire wasn't just at risk, it was seconds away from collapse. It started with a leak, a blurry photo showing Yandy Smith at an event she swore she never attended. The event where she allegedly crossed paths with the man her in-laws claimed helped her climb On its own, the photo wasn't scandalous, but the implication devastating. Fans zoomed in on timestamps, jewelry, dresses. "That's her, no doubt," one user posted. Within minutes, #Yandy exposed was trending again. The family promised more. Screenshots, recordings, tapes, and as they held back, fans waited like vultures for the next drop. Meanwhile, Yandy's silence once her shield, once her weapon was now strangling her. Every day she refused to speak. Her brand bled more. She posted family photos, motivational captions, business promotions, as if nothing was happening. And under every post, chaos erupted. Comment sections turned into trials. Every word she typed twisted back against her dot, and still, Mendeecees Harris stayed silent. His silence became its own story. Blogs ran headlines like "Mendeecees stands. Baka's family destroys Yandy." Talk shows asked if his silence was loyalty or betrayal in disguise. Fans begged him to speak, but he didn't, and perception turned absence into agreement. Then came the bomb that shifted everything. A livestream surfaced where a relative played muffled recordings they swore were from Yandy's past conversations, painting her as calculated, cold, willing to cut anyone loose if it served her goals. The audio was grainy, unverifiable, but in reality TV, it didn't matter. Proof doesn't have to be clear, it just has to sound possible. And that was enough. The family then tied the betrayal directly to her marriage. They claimed Yandy Smith had calculated her way into Mendeecees' life. His struggle, his prison time, his redemption, they painted it not as love, but as strategy. To them, she didn't stand by him out of devotion, she stood by him because his story made her brand bullet. Proof, fans gasped, the love story they adored was now reframed as manipulation. Old clips of Yandy crying in visiting rooms resurfaced with brutal captions. Was this love? Or a business move? And through it all, Yandy Smith stayed silent. But her silence wasn't powerful anymore. It was suffocating, and Mendeecees Harris' absence became louder than words. No likes on her posts. No photos together, no appearances. For a man who branded himself family first, his absence was louder than any live stream. Finally, the family dropped the line that shattered everything. Yandy Smith wanted the world to see her as perfect, but the truth, she never was. And the receipts prove it. That wasn't shade, it was demolition. It wasn't gossip, it was dismantling. And fans didn't see it as petty anymore. They saw it as a coordinated takedown from people who knew her best. The fallout was catastrophic. Brand deals questioned, bloggers speculated which sponsors would walk. Castmates forced to pick sides, some dodging, some hinting, some openly calling her out. And all eyes turned to the reunion. Hyped as the most explosive in years, fans weren't tuning in for entertainment, they were tuning in for answers. Would the family finally drop the receipts? Would Yandy Smith clap back? Or would Mendeecees Harris be forced to choose his wife or his blood? In the end, this scandal was never just about secrets, it was about loyalty, about trust. About the price of building a flawless image in a world that thrives on chaos. The family flipped the script, turning Yandy's greatest weapon, her image, into her greatest weakness. And the scariest part? The family said they haven't even told half of it yet. Because if you thought this was betrayal, wait, the most dangerous revelations aren't the ones spoken, they're the ones still being saved. And they're coming.